Should I just blast some sugar in, maybe like 20 minutes before I hit the court? Or should I just not even bother?
Did you say all of the answers are up for debate? Mentally understand that it might take you about half an hour before you reach some of your better tennis. If you're like me and you sit down a lot and you do a bunch of other things as well that maybe put strain on either your back or your legs or whatever, some static stretches to begin with are actually quite a good idea.
Should I maybe picture hitting my forehand with, some nice shape, some nice topspin on the ball? Should I think about what I'm going to say to my opponent maybe at the net when I whip his ass? Love and love.
You want to be calm and collected. Going on angry and pumped, ready for 140-mile-an-hour serves. It can work for some people, but I guarantee it's not most.
Welcome back to the Getting a Grip podcast. This week we are talking about some pre-match habits that you might want to think about before you hit the court next time. Be it, in a little local competition, or maybe you're just playing against a mate that you really want to beat. These are a few things that, you might want to think about just to make yourself feel better, feel a bit more confident and ready to perform a little bit better in those matches. So we're doing it in the normal quiz format, but there is, potential for some debate here. This is not a 100% yes or no thing. There is some debate to be had here and some different opinions, I think, on different subjects. So the first one centers around nutrition. Woo! Everyone's favorite. Okay, so in terms of eating before I play, should I eat at least 5 hours before I play? Should I eat maybe 1 to 3 hours before I start playing my match? Should I just blast some sugar in, maybe like 20 minutes before I hit the court? Or should I just not even bother? Doesn't even matter. What do we think?
Oh, I love that last answer. Did you say all of the answers are up for debate?
Oh no, we're going to go down a rabbit hole today.
Remember, you're here with a scientist who plays devil's advocate quite a lot. Anywho, I personally would advocate for the 1 to 3 hours before. Now, again, as you say, this could be argued. The last answer is clearly wrong. We know that one. I would make a heavy argument for the second to last answer being wrong. As someone who thinks about blood sugars quite a lot, I would say that the second answer, 1 to 3 hours, is probably about right. But the 5 hours also could be right, because it depends what you're eating at those different times that will determine when to eat it. That's my answer. How did I do?
In my eyes, which are the only eyes that matter here, yes, I agree with that. 1 to 3 hours before, I think, is a safe bet. But again, obviously, like you said, what you're eating matters a lot. So like the reason why, hitting some sugar 30 minutes before might not be a good idea is because, yes, you will get that initial kind of energy boost. Maybe at the start of the match, you feel really good. But inevitably, there's going to come a point where that dips off and then goes the other way. So that energy boost that you've had, there is then the other side to that hill. And so you might find yourself, even within that first set, starting to feel a bit more lethargic and lacking energy. And then you basically trying to chase that, kind of maintain that level where you're not feeling horrendous for the rest of the match with more sugar. So that's often why that is kind of maybe not the best idea. Like during a match, if you say you've eaten 1 to 3 hours before, during a match you will probably still need, especially if it like goes on for a longer period of time, you'll probably need some other like quick release stuff, or maybe even just like a banana or something as you go through the match, like little things. But trying to load yourself up with sugar just beforehand is probably not going to work out for you unless you win that set in like, I don't know, 10 minutes or something. You just completely blast them away. You're probably going to struggle later on. In terms of the actual food, like if we're eating 1 to 3 hours before the match, what kind of food should I eat? Or, what's the composition of that look like?
A great question. I have a little anecdote actually about what sort of food you should eat before coming onto the court. A guy I always used to, I still do actually play tennis with every now and then. He basically had a diet of either pizza or stir fry. This is in the evening. He wasn't having that for breakfast, but basically he would decide literally half an hour or an hour before playing tennis, he would either have a massive pizza or he would have a stir fry. And sometimes, I swear to God, he'd combine the two into one massive pizza stir fry abomination. Because he'd always come on and feel a little bit, oh, how are you doing tonight? And then you'd look at him, he'd be, nah, not too good, a bit full. So that's something you want to avoid. You want to avoid eating too much. That's the main thing, if you ask me. What you need to eat before, say in that 1 to 3 hour period, I think the key answer there is it depends on you and it depends on your metabolism. However, there are some more key responses to this sort of thing. I personally would eat something that's sort of a bit more of a long-acting carbohydrate. So something like a pasta or some rice or something like that. Obviously, not just that. I like to season my food. Some people are a bit psychopathic in England and don't really like flavour. But that's the sort of thing that I would go with. And I'd have that with, nice meat or perhaps a vegetable dish.
Yeah. I would say as a generic advice point, that's a good one to have. Yeah, the slow releasing carbs. And then, that kind of preps your body's kind of stores of energy that they can use throughout the match. Then you're not just getting that initial boost. I suppose if you're playing early in the morning, I maybe wouldn't suggest eating anything because you're not going to have that much time, I think. But like if you're starting fairly early morning, again, just I think have something with you like during the match. Maybe like we said, banana or something like that. Just simple. Keep it simple. Doesn't need to be.
And that's the key thing as well. Like we always talk about what fast-acting food you can have, and the first thing people think of, and I've been a bit of a victim of this in the past as well. The first thing you think of is a Lucozade or biscuits or something like that. You're thinking of the bad stuff. And whilst those are fine, because I guarantee you when you play tennis, you're probably going to burn more energy than those biscuits are going to give you. I think you can still do it in a very, very, if you want to call it, healthy way. Some of the best things I've seen people eat on court is obviously as a banana. You see people having just a bite of banana. And these are the elite athletes out there. Every half an hour, they'll have just one bite of the banana. Goes to show how much energy you actually need in order to sustain your energy. They'll do all the whole storing and mass eating afterwards or before the matches and stuff like that. They won't do it during because obviously you get too full. I would say that, or dates are great as well. That's a nice fast release, but they've got a slightly healthier aspect to them.
There you go. So keep it simple and try and eat a few hours before if you can, and maybe not a pizza stir fry. Maybe just avoid that.
Stir fry.
All right, second habit. So this one, there's probably more debate with this one, I think. So this one centers around having a hit before I play a match. This is if you're really, really into tennis and you can't, the thought of, not playing a few hours before gives you the shakes. I need to be doing something. I need to be hitting a ball. So when, or should I even be hitting in the first place is sort of the question here. So should I do a 30-minute intense about 3 to 5 hours before my match? Should I have a light hit, maybe half an hour to an hour before I hit? Should I have a light hit maybe a few hours before I play my match? Or maybe even not bother at all? Doesn't matter, mate. Doesn't matter. Don't even have a hit on the day.
Okay, so I'm going to give my advice, first of all, with what I would do, and then what I would do if I had a life. So I have a life, so there's two things I would do. So if you're a professional tennis player, you would have, I think it was the two middle answers. You'd have a light hit 3 to 5 or few hours before. Then you'd have a light hit half an hour to an hour before as well. Again, just going through the motions, seeing the ball, doing what you need to do so that you feel fresh. So you don't go onto the court and you're like, oh my God, where's the tennis ball, as it hits you in the face. However, if you have a life, I would argue that the best thing to do, if you can turn up a tad earlier, half an hour to an hour before is perfect, because you just have a light hit, you get used to it. Don't overly stress yourself with running loads or getting the drop shots. Leave them. Leave the drop shots. If someone's drop shotting you whilst you're having a light hit, you need to tell them where to go. But to be quite honest, a lot of us don't have the time for that. So if you're turning up to a match and you haven't hit all day, that's fine. You've just got to be prepared mentally, understand that it might take you about half an hour before you reach some of your better tennis.
Yeah.
How do you like my answer?
I think especially, I think, ideally, if you don't have a life, then you'll be hitting for have like a half an hour hit in there. Maybe, not long before you go on, or a couple hours before is even probably okay. But I think, you make a good point. If you've been, say, you've been working in the office all day, you've been sat at a computer, you're not, your eyes have basically honed in on that screen that's like a couple of feet away from you, and they haven't really been looking into the distance or looking it's going to take a while to start actually picking up the ball first and then being like, oh, I need to move my body as well to make it easier. I often find this when if I've been sat at a computer for a long period of time during the day, it takes me longer to get going before that match. So even when I've had a 10-minute warm up, you might have, you just hit for 10 minutes, do some volleys, warm up a few serves. Yep. Even then I'm like, I'm not quite moving quite right. It takes me another 15-20 minutes to get into it. So not ideal, but you kind of at least go in with that approach, or that acknowledging the fact that you've been sat at a computer most of the day. You're not going to just suddenly start hitting 100-mile-an-hour winners from the get-go. So
well, I was going to say, this is exactly it, right? You just, as long as you're prepared for the fact that your best tennis might be half a set or half an hour away from you. If you know your opponent's in the same position as you, then that's fine. You can accept that maybe. Because, that match isn't going to hinge on the fact that, oh, you stayed in the office. Like a good person who finishes their work. Life's not all about tennis. He says, running a tennis podcast. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to warm up properly, because you can really enjoy a match. You can really enjoy a match when you come on fresh and ready to play, ready to strike that ball well.
All right. That leads me on to the next one, which is, again, still, this centers around warm-ups. And exactly kind of what should I be doing in my warm-up in terms of not the actual hitting part, but in terms of actually just prepping my body for the rigors of who knows, maybe a local match against a mate, or maybe, a division match against other clubs in the area, something like that. What should I do in my warm-up? So should I just do some static stretches before I start? Stretching out my hamstrings, just staying in that position for a long period of time, trying to stretch it out. Should I do some dynamic stretches, incorporating a bit of movement while I do it? I know, maybe, some lunges or something like that. There's a dynamic stretching component. I'm moving while I'm stretching. And that trying to gradually increase my heart rate while I'm doing that. Should I smash out a few quick games? Maybe I should actually get my racket out and just warm up that way, where I'm just having a couple of fun games against someone. Or should I just chill, not really bother with the stretching, just, listen to some music or something, just chill out, relax my body?
So I don't think you meant to say the last one the way you did, because you wanted to make it seem like, nah, it's no big deal, just don't do anything.
Hey,
however,
you can give whatever answer you want.
However, mentally preparing for a match is just as important as physically preparing. I'm going to argue here
We'll come on to that.
I'm gonna. I know you. I know you will. I know what you're like. I'm going to argue that 3 out of the 4 there are really important. You shouldn't go on and just play some quick games. Guarantee you that's not the way, because you probably shank everything. I certainly would, and I'm actually quite a good tennis player. I actually played a fixture the other week, and I hadn't played in 2 weeks, and the first set was maybe the worst tennis I'd played in 3 years. So sometimes going straight on and just going like, yeah, fine, I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. I'm a good tennis player. It's fine. It's not fine. So I would argue that your static stretches, right? It depends who you are. So if you're more of an athlete and you've got more time, then yes, you probably only need those dynamic stretches. You probably only need things that are going to elevate your heart rate, also stretch out the things that are at risk of being pulled or whatever, to make sure that you're all supple and ready to go. However, if you're like me and you sit down a lot, and you do a bunch of other things as well that maybe put strain on either your back or your legs or whatever, some static stretches to begin with are actually quite a good idea. And I'll advocate that because you're often going to get scenarios where you come on, you're feeling a bit tight. If you do something dynamic, it's probably going to go. And the last thing you want is to snap something before you try and use it to play a set of tennis or something. So I'm going to say static, then dynamic, then try and chill out a little bit. Because once you've raised that heart rate, it does take a while for it to come back down. So you can give yourself a couple of minutes just to relax, sit in a chair, have a think about what your life means to you, maybe 42, and then get up and play the set.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's a good point. I think combining the static and the dynamic, not just doing one or the other. You're probably right in that. Like more advanced players, they're doing static stretches like every day. You know, they might be doing it in the morning before a training session, and in the evening, and wherever else. So they're already kind of pretty flexible and supple anyway, just day to day. Whereas some of us, a lot of us, maybe if we're sat at a computer, like we've talked about before, things just start to stiffen up because we haven't really been moving around much. So yeah, I think that's a good point to start off with a few static stretches and then gradually move into the dynamic ones and then up the heart rate from there. I think that's going to prepare you the best to kind of feel like you can move pretty well on the court. And again, how long do you reckon we should be spending in that whole kind of process? Like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes? What do you reckon?
Oh, that's a really tough one because again, it depends on who you are. All of these answers are it depends, because you can give good advice, and this is part of what we're here to do, right? We're here to give people templates to go away and go, okay, I've got some power in knowledge now. I can go and make my own decision that's better informed. And for me, I would say, okay, I will spend 5 to 10 minutes. But for someone else, it might mean that you need that 15 minutes. You might even need half an hour to warm up. Some people need a proper warm up. It depends. And again, if you've got a life, you might not have time for a big warm up because you want to get the most out of the cardio from your tennis. You're not going into that match because you want to win it. You're going into that match because you just want to play, because you've been sat down all week or you've been looking after the kids all week, etc. So that's really important, in my opinion, is making a decision that you know is well informed for your own body. If you've got an injury, please warm up.
Yeah, it's prioritizing what's important if you've got like a limited amount of time. Like you said, if you've got like an injury or you're managing something, then that might be the place to focus on in that warm up.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. So we touched upon it there anyway. Obviously, as part of the warm up routine, you're also ideally trying to kind of mentally prepare yourself as well in that warm-up. So in terms of that mental preparation, what should I do before I play the match? If I've got, maybe even just a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, should I visualize hitting a 140-mile-an-hour serve down the tee? Come on. Should I maybe picture hitting my forehand with, some nice shape, some nice topspin on the ball? Should I think about what I'm going to say to my opponent maybe at the net when I whip his ass, love and love, or her ass? Or maybe just listen to some music and not even think about anything else?
Well, that's such a plethora of answers. If you were to look at the professional tennis players, I guarantee that a few of them have gone through all of those. Specifically, the "what are you going to say" bit. I think Holger Rune and Stan Wawrinka have definitely had a little think about that. Sorry, I had to bring it up. Anyway, obviously that's the one that you wouldn't do. You're not going to think about what to say again, unless you're a really angry person. If you're a really angry person and you want to say something funny, then say it because it'll be funny. But the best things you can do, I would argue, you're saying to me, "Oh, imagine hitting a 140-mile-an-hour serve down the tee." Like, well, if you're a player who has been able to hit a very good serve down the tee before, then sure, visualize it. Because what's important is that if you're putting yourself in a scenario where you're visualizing doing these things, you're mentally preparing yourself and physically preparing yourself as a result to give yourself the chance to be able to. If I'm going to go with the most sensible answer there and be all nice and boring, the old vanilla butter answer on toast answer. Yes, the vanilla answer. Then obviously I'm going to say, imagine hitting your forehand with some nice spin and all that sort of stuff. But maybe you don't hit the ball with much spin. Maybe that's not how you play tennis. So for you, that might be hitting a nice flat shot down the line, or keeping nice consistent cross courts, or slicing a nice little drop shot and coming in onto the net. Like your style of tennis is what you want to imagine you playing, and the effect, so that you can get prepared to be nice and intense doing it.
Should I focus on how many different kind of things should I be thinking about? Maybe just focus on a couple of things, maybe a couple of strengths of mine.
So if I'm going into a tennis match, I'm going to go, what's my opponent's weakness? If they're a long-standing friend and you know what their weaknesses are, then you go, great. So I'm thinking to myself, Ben, what's Ben's weakness? So he hits a one-handed backhand that's sometimes a bit dodgy and mistimed. So I'm probably going to imagine hitting my shots there. I'm going to imagine coming for an inside-out forehand and hitting it to that cross court. I'm going to imagine taking my backhand on and playing some nice backhand loopy rallies with him, because I reckon I can outlast him on my one-handed backhand than he can with me. So there's those sorts of conversations you'll have in your own head, and you'll think, okay, so let's have a focus on one thing, and then visualize that one thing that you think you can do well. It might be that they're not a very good returner, so you're thinking about, I'm going to put a little bit of topspin, I'll kick it into them when I hit my serve, or slice it into them, or something like that. It's just visualize one thing, give yourself a focus. If it doesn't work, then you can change it midway through the match. But to start with, you want to be calm and collected. Going on angry and pumped, ready for 140-mile-an-hour serves, it can work for some people, but I guarantee it's not most.
It's funny, the one about thinking about what you're going to say to your opponent, afterwards. I've actually, during a match, when I'm ahead, I have sometimes thought too far ahead, and I'm like, I wonder what the conversation's going to be like at the net, or maybe one of these
pro players.
Yeah, and then funny enough, then I start losing 3 games in a row. I'm like, okay, well, what do I say if I lose? and then it's gone. No, I think just keep it simple. Think about one thing. If you don't know your opponent, maybe, then you just focus on what your strength is, or a pattern of play, if you want to be more advanced, that works fairly well for you. And then in the match, you might see something else in that. You might see something in their game, and then you can, if you've got time at a changeover or something, you might just think for 30 seconds, maybe try this strategy. But I think, especially with tennis, I think that kind of visualization helps a lot. I certainly, even when I was learning tennis, just as a point from learning tennis, watching how someone hits the ball, even if it's not me, helped me to hit the ball better. So just that act of thinking about it, picturing it, is enough to kind of, give you a little bit of a boost there. So don't neglect it completely. Maybe if you've got a spare few minutes, try it out. Try one of those techniques. All right, last one. This is a bit of a bonus one. Might be maybe a more advanced one. So the question is, when should I have a nap before my match? Let's say I'm playing.
Oh, that's
in the
a question
evening.
after my heart. That one.
So let's say I'm playing in the evening. Let's take that as the example in this case. Should I nap ideally? Maybe 15 to 30 minutes in the afternoon before I play a match in the evening. Should I go for a 15-minute power nap, maybe just before I go on court, if I can find the time? Should I take, I don't know, like a 1 hour nap, as long as I can find some point during the day, just to, just chill out completely? Or the last option, doesn't matter, mate. Just crack on.
Right. Okay. So we're going to go back to the old. It depends who you are, because it does. And this one I think is massive in depending who you are. We've seen pro tennis players on Breakpoint, the Netflix series, for example. We have definitely seen pro tennis players who are just like asleep, and then they get told, "Oh, it's time to go on centre court, mate, and play your match," and they just sort of wake up, go on court, and then win. I don't know how you can possibly do that. I couldn't do it, and I imagine most people listening are probably not too keen on it either. I'd feel a bit groggy and a bit rubbish, maybe for the first sort of 10 minutes or so. But then again, as soon as you get that adrenaline pumping around your body, everything's fixed. Maybe we just all need EpiPens. No, that's a bad idea. Anywho, I would say that sort of a 15-30 minute nap in the afternoon before an evening match, that's probably about right. But again, if you need it, you might not need it. So, a nap is very much, oh, are you tired? And then last of all, it depends if you've got time. So if you're at work, I guarantee you can't take a nap. So taking a nap for 15 to 30 minutes in the afternoon, or trying to get some sort of hour halfway through the day, that's just not going to happen. So yeah, they're all
during my
lovely
lunch
ideas.
break? Come on.
What, in my chair? I know there are ergonomic chairs, but they're not that comfortable. Yeah, I have to say, I think this is a question for preference, and you'll know your own preferences. It's just knowing how best to look after yourself. If you know the best way to look after yourself is you only feel fresh if you've had a little power nap, then go ahead and do it. But I don't think that would help me.
Yeah, I'm not one to take a lot of naps. I think it's a nice to have, like, if you do have the time for it, and maybe if you've not slept amazingly the night before, sometimes like a short nap can do wonders. If you've missed out on like some deep sleep or something, like, yeah, a nap can help with that. And maybe this is something we'll talk about in a future episode. Maybe we'll have someone on talking about sleep. Who knows? But yeah, I think this is more, like I added it on as the last one because it's kind of a nice to have. I think if you can get all your ducks in a row with the other stuff, even just like basic things like we've talked about before, try and eat a few hours beforehand. Maybe try and do like a little warm up for 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe listen to a little bit of music to chill out, try and picture how a point might go, or like hitting a nice shot. Get those things sorted first, and then maybe this is something you can think about down the line, or if you have time to do it. But yeah, it's a nice to have.
I'll be honest. It's a nice to have one, this one. But better advice would be, no matter how tired you feel, whether you've had the nap or not, try and avoid caffeine in a quick succession before you go on court. And I'll tell you why. The moment you start doing intense cardiovascular exercise, especially in the sort of short interval way that tennis is, you sort of play like 10, 20, 30-second points at most, and then you stop being that intense and you keep repeating that builds up the adrenaline like nothing else. I tell you what, it's better than a coffee. So don't have the caffeine, because you'll wake up, I promise.
I'd be a bit worried if you didn't, to be honest. Like some kind of psychopath on court. That's probably one thing we focused on the eating part. We didn't really talk about in terms of like what to drink as well. That's kind of, maybe this is like a bonus tip. In terms of like drinking, I think if if it's fairly hot and you're going to sweat quite a lot, then that's time to start thinking about some electrolytes in your drink. Because that's another thing that can happen during a match. If you become a little bit dehydrated, then I've had it before where, well, either you can start cramping up, or you might even have like your stomach might feel a bit off, little things like that, and you just want to just replenish some of the kind of like salts and stuff that you lose during a match, which is also why sugar in the drink is actually okay, because it helps to deliver that stuff into your bloodstream as well. But that's just a bonus tip.
Well, like I say, if you feel like you want to find out more about these sorts of things, we will be doing a few more episodes soon, all about the nutrition in tennis, all about what the experts recommend. And that'll be really good to look out for, because you can really supercharge the way that you play any sport, to be quite honest, but specifically tennis, like with the way that you manage sort of these things.
Yeah, and we also have some more on like training and stuff as well, so that we can look at warm-ups and all that sort of stuff in the future. Awesome. All right. Let us know kind of what tips that you are using or that you might use that we've talked about here. Again, try and keep it simple. The more things we try and like list down or think about, then the more we end up just like not doing any of them. So maybe just try and take one thing only that's probably most important that you can do with the time that you have. Let us know. And if you've enjoyed it, give us a follow on the different podcast platforms, and on YouTube, subscribe, share it around if you feel inclined to do so. And we will see you in the next one.